In Toronto's Church and Wellesley village, the vibrant heart of the city's LGBTQ community, life once thrived in a spirit of acceptance and celebration. The neighbourhood was a sanctuary, a place where people could be themselves without fear. But between 2010 and 2017, a chilling pattern began to emerge. Men started to vanish without a trace, leaving the community in shock and confusion. These missing men weren't anonymous faces. They were beloved friends, partners, and neighbors. Skandaraj Navaratnam, Abdulbasir Faizi, and Majid Kaihan were among the first to disappear. Their absence felt deeply by those who knew them. Their sudden absences left friends and family desperate for answers, clinging to hope as days turned into weeks with no word. Posters went up on every corner, warnings spread through word of mouth and social media, and a growing sense of fear took hold of the village. The village, once a lively refuge, now felt under siege. The familiar streets seemed haunted by uncertainty. Police involvement seemed slow and, to many, dismissive. Officials insisted there was no evidence linking the cases, fueling frustration and suspicion among residents. As more men vanished, Soroush Mahmoudi, Andrew Kinsman, Salim Essen, the community's trust in law enforcement eroded further. Each new disappearance deepened the sense of betrayal. The disappearance of Andrew Kinsman in 2017 marked a turning point. Kinsman was a well-known activist, and his sudden absence galvanized the public, drawing citywide attention to the crisis. Massive search parties formed, with volunteers combing parks and alleyways, handing out flyers, and refusing to let the missing be forgotten. The city's attention finally shifted to the growing tragedy. The pattern was undeniable. The community's fear and anxiety reached a boiling point as people gathered in tense meetings, demanding action and answers. Rumors of a serial predator swirled through the village, whispered in hushed tones and splashed across newspaper headlines, amplifying the sense of dread. The list of missing men grew longer, and the village's sense of safety was shattered. What was once a symbol of pride now felt like a community in mourning. Each new disappearance was a fresh wound, reopening old pain and deepening the collective grief. The community demanded answers, organizing protests and vigils, but official responses felt inadequate and slow, leaving many feeling abandoned. The village was no longer just a neighborhood. It had become a community under threat, its vibrant spirit dimmed by fear and uncertainty. Residents knew with growing certainty that a predator was in their midst. The question was, how many more would vanish before someone listened? Bruce McArthur appeared ordinary, a grandfather, landscaper, even a mall Santa. He lived quietly in the suburbs, but led a double life. After coming out in the 1990s, he became a familiar face in the village, using dating apps and offering work to vulnerable men. In 2001, he was convicted of assault, but avoided serious consequences and police scrutiny. Despite this violent past, McArthur blended in, running his landscaping business and storing equipment at a Leaside property. He was seen as friendly and reliable. No one suspected the truth. McArthur's unassuming persona was the perfect cover. He targeted men on the margins, those less likely to be missed. The warning signs were there, but he slipped through the cracks. He was hiding in plain sight. When Skandaraj Navaratnam, Abdulbasir Faizi, and Majid Kaihan disappeared within a short span, alarm bells rang in Toronto's gay village. In response, police launched Project Houston, a dedicated task force to investigate the mysterious vanishings. Detectives pored over files, searching for any clue. The task force explored multiple theories. Perhaps the men were runaways, victims of suicide, or had chosen to start new lives elsewhere. But the idea of a serial killer was not seriously considered at this stage. Meanwhile, members of the LGBTQ community insisted the cases were connected. They pointed to striking similarities in the men's backgrounds, their ties to the village, and the circumstances of their disappearances. Despite repeated pleas and mounting concern, the investigation stalled. Police said there was no evidence of foul play and continued to dismiss the serial killer theory, leaving the community feeling ignored and vulnerable. In 2013, Bruce McArthur was interviewed by police because of his connection to Navaratnam. He denied any involvement, and with no concrete evidence, he was cleared and allowed to walk free. This would later be seen as a critical missed opportunity. McArthur's violent past, including a previous assault charge, went unnoticed and uninvestigated. After 18 months, Project Houston was quietly shut down. The task force had found no answers, and the files were packed away, leaving families and friends devastated and the community's frustration growing. The men remained missing, their faces haunting posters and vigils. The sense of vulnerability and fear in the village only deepened as time passed, with no resolution. The reality was chilling. The killer was still out there, free to continue preying on the community, while the city remained on edge. The community's warnings and suspicions had gone unheeded, fueling anger and mistrust toward the authorities. For those living in fear, the pattern was unmistakable. The disappearances were not isolated. They were part of something much larger and more sinister. In the end, the official investigation had failed them, leaving a community searching for answers and justice that seemed out of reach. By summer 2017, panic gripped the village. Andrew Kinsman and Selim Eason disappeared within weeks, sparking a massive public outcry. The police launched Project Prism, a new task force, but publicly denied any serial killer link. Community frustration boiled over. Official reassurances rang hollow. Project Prism investigators, however, worked urgently, piecing together the victims' final days. Security footage, phone records, and interviews painted a disturbing picture. The community, skeptical but determined, provided tips and organized their own searches. The similarities between victims, men of color, immigrants, marginalized, were impossible to ignore. Police began to build a profile, someone trusted, moving easily within the community. Suspicion grew, but the killer's identity remained unknown. The village was on high alert. The hunt intensified. The breakthrough in the investigation came from an unexpected place: Andrew Kinsman's personal calendar, a simple object that would become the key to unraveling a chilling mystery. On the very day Andrew disappeared, he had written just one word in his calendar: Bruce. It was a name that, at first glance, seemed innocuous, but to detectives, it was a potential lead in a case that had gone cold. Investigators immediately zeroed in on this clue, meticulously cross-referencing it with other pieces of evidence and combing through Kinsman's contacts and recent communications. The name Bruce became the focal point of their search. Their efforts paid off when security footage surfaced, showing Kinsman entering a red Dodge Caravan on the day he vanished. This was the first visual confirmation of his last known movements. Police quickly traced the van's registration, which led them to Bruce McArthur, a name that had surfaced in earlier investigations but had never been fully explored. With this new connection, surveillance on McArthur began in earnest. Detectives watched his every move, knowing he was now their prime suspect and that time was of the essence. In a race against time, McArthur sold the red Dodge Caravan to a scrapyard. Fortunately, police managed to recover the vehicle before it was destroyed, preserving crucial evidence. Inside the van, forensic investigators discovered traces of blood. DNA analysis would later confirm that the blood belonged to Andrew Kinsman, providing the first concrete forensic link in the case. This DNA match was the breakthrough detectives desperately needed. It tied McArthur directly to Kinsman's disappearance and gave the investigation undeniable momentum. The mounting evidence confirmed their worst fears. A serial killer was operating in their midst, preying on vulnerable members of the community. The single name in Kinsman's calendar had led police straight to the predator they had been searching for, connecting the dots in a case that had haunted the city. With this revelation, police intensified their surveillance efforts, determined to apprehend McArthur before he could claim another victim. The investigation had reached a critical and dangerous point. Every decision now carried enormous weight as the team prepared for a possible confrontation. For Toronto's LGBTQ community, the discovery was bittersweet. Their warnings and fears had finally been validated, but the cost had been devastating. As detectives pieced together the final clues, a sense of resolve filled the investigation room. The endgame was near, and justice was finally within reach. On January 18, 2018, police saw McArthur bring a man into his apartment. Fearing for the man's life, they stormed in, interrupting an attack in progress. McArthur was arrested on the spot. Inside, police found items belonging to the missing men and disturbing photos documenting his crimes. The investigation expanded to the Mallory Crescent property, where McArthur stored landscaping equipment. Police unearthed planters filled with dismembered remains, 7 victims identified, an 8th found nearby. The backyard was a hidden cemetery. McArthur was charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder. In January 2019, he pleaded guilty, sparing families a trial. He was sentenced to life in prison, no parole for 25 years. The scale of his crimes shocked the city. The nightmare was finally over. McArthur's arrest brought not relief, but outrage. The LGBTQ community felt betrayed. Warnings had been ignored, and lives lost. Police leadership, especially Chief Mark Saunders, faced harsh criticism for downplaying the threat. Vigils turned to protests. Calls for accountability grew louder. Many believed systemic bias played a role. Victims were men of color, immigrants, marginalized. The case exposed deep flaws in police response, and trust was shattered. Demands for an independent inquiry followed. The fight for answers and justice had only begun. Under pressure, the Toronto Police Services Board ordered an independent review led by Justice Gloria Epstein. Her Missing and Missed report found systemic flaws and bias in missing persons investigations. The report detailed missed opportunities, poor communication, and inadequate resources. Epstein made 151 recommendations, including specialized missing persons units and better training. The police accepted all recommendations and issued a formal apology. Chief James Raymer pledged reform and rebuilding trust. For many, the apology was just a start. Skepticism remained. The community waited to see if real change would follow. The legacy of Bruce McArthur's crimes still haunts Toronto. Memorials honor the 8 victims, but scars remain deep in the LGBTQ community. Police have implemented reforms, but trust is slow to rebuild. Community-led safety initiatives have grown, reflecting ongoing skepticism. The case forced a reckoning with systemic discrimination and the need to listen to vulnerable communities. The village is forever changed, watchful, resilient, and determined to never be ignored again. The fight for true accountability and safety continues.
I'm Adrian Gobriel. We're live outside of alleged serial killer Bruce McArthur's apartment tonight in East Toronto. Now, tonight a police source confirms with us that back on January 18th, they watched a young man walk into the 19th floor of McArthur's apartment. That is when officers moved in, rushing the apartment, kicking down the door. Inside, they found that young man handcuffed to the alleged serial killer's bed. Now, our police source says that young man made it out safe, though tonight we're learning more about another man whose fate is still unclear. McArthur is charged with the murder of 5 men: Andrew Kinsman, Salim Essen, Majid Kahan, Sarush Mahmoudi, and Dean Lissawick. Yesterday, we told you that police have unearthed the dismembered remains of at least 3 unidentified individuals from multiple large planters from some of the 30 properties they're sifting through. On January 21st, City News captured police removing this large, heavy planter from the property of Ron Smith and Karen Frazier. Today, I spoke on the phone with Smith. He says police have been very professional while conducting their investigation on the couple's Leaside property, and his heart goes out to the victims and their families. Though being removed from their homes with no return date in sight has been difficult.
What an upheaval. You have to get out of your house. You have to get out now. This is serious. And bye-bye. So we grabbed a couple of things, left, and it's been a shambles ever since. It's an alternate reality. You're waking up. We're now on our second group of friends who've been good enough to be able to keep us. We aren't that far away, so what we do is every now and then we drive by just to check in to see what it looks like. And it really it's very surreal.
Now, Smith adds that McArthur worked on his property for about 10 years. He'd do some free work there. In turn, they let McArthur store some of his equipment on their Leaside property in the garage at their home. Now, tonight, the folks over at Scott Mission also confirmed with me that police came and interviewed them just before we went in there today. They were asking if anyone else who uses the mission may have ties to Bruce McArthur. Tonight, the investigation still continues. It's a story we'll be keeping a close eye on in the days to come. I'm Adrian Gabriel, City News.
Okay, sir, and your name is?
Bruce McArthur.
And if you could spell it for me, please.
B-R-U-C-E, and McArthur, M-A-R-T-H-U-R.
Okay, sir. And right now, you're under arrest. You're placed under arrest this evening for the offense of assault, okay? You've been brought here to 32 Division for the purposes of being investigated for that offense, okay? So an allegation has been made against you, and this officer in just a moment is going to let you know exactly what that allegation is, okay? What I'm going to do to you right now is just read you a caution and let you know that you're being investigated for the offense of assault, okay? You're not obliged to say anything unless you wish to do so, but whatever you say may be given in evidence. Do you understand?
I do.
Okay. Do you wish to say anything in answer to the charge? Again, do you wish to provide us a statement with some clarity as to what happened? Okay.
So the allegations are that around 6:30 p.m. this evening, during the course of your involvement with him, there was an allegation made of assault, which choking was the allegation made, and that's basically why you're under arrest today for that assault.
Okay. So, sir, if you would like to provide us with your account of what occurred earlier this evening.
We were going to have sex, and he suggested do it in the back of his truck since it hadn't been used yet. It was a brand new truck. I said, oh, there's more room in the back of my van. So we went to my van. So then I thought, okay, he likes it rough. So I put my hand to his throat, and just for a few seconds, because before that he's very strong, he just completely turned around and grabbed me by the throat. He said, now I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to you. And he had me by the throat to the point that I couldn't breathe. So I put my hands like in the air, like surrender, because I couldn't talk. And that's when he finally let go. And then he jumped out of the car. He said, I don't want to see you again.
Has anything like this ever happened before, where things got out of hand?
Not like that. No, not that quickly, or not just like that.
Okay. Things have never gotten violent?
No.
Okay.
I thought he liked it rough.
Okay.
He was getting off on it.
Just before we conclude, is there anything else you feel might be important to tell us before we end the interview?
Like what? I don't know what else it would be.
We always give people an opportunity to say something that maybe we haven't asked before we conclude.
I don't know, we had sex, numerous times and never had a problem.
Sure. Okay. Great. Time that